spent that much time. And one of the connections that I had with her, obviously, is also from the civil rights movement. Something that as a child influenced me greatly, because as a child growing up in North Muskegon, as the only Asian, I'm mixed race Korean, and I was born in Korea at a time that had my mother not remarried and moved us here, I probably would not be sitting in front of you today. And so as a child, it struck me very much as to trying to find who I was and to try to really find a place for myself in this world. And first thing I did was stumble on a book by Malcolm X on his biography, and it truly influenced me. Gave me some of the pride that I needed to really try to find myself. And obviously through that, I started researching more books and eventually learned about the civil rights movement and the history in the United States. And as an adult, young adult, I moved to New York, joined the NAACP, marched on Washington twice, and was very active. And in my young 30s, I had the opportunity one day to meet Mrs. Parks. And we met, I had the opportunity to go and spend Thanksgiving with her in Detroit. And just through a short conversation, I was at the peak of my career in the technology boom. And I was also a very angry young man because of what I've gone through personally in the sense of race relations and whatnot. And she, in a very short conversation, taught me what her philosophy was in quiet strength. And it changed my life. It changed my life to want to jump in and help, roll up my sleeves. And once I got involved with her, it was a little frustrating because I was wanting to go march some more and didn't realize what her organization had nothing to do with that. It taught. One of the things you learned in Mighty Times is Mrs. Parks, which in my opinion actually helped influence the civil rights movement, not just because of her single act, but what you saw was the key, that she taught children. And it was those children that influenced the rest of the community to go out and do what they did. And it was her belief in God that it was through quiet strength. What she learned at Highlander to, what their teachings of Gandhi-esque type training was peace. And she saw the anger in me. And so to kind of tie it to the question that you had been asking, when you look at what's going on today with Muslims and with the immigration laws that are trying to be enacted, the fight's not over. They're now stepping into my neck of the woods. Immigration is something that's very, very dear to my heart, and it's something that the battle still exists. The lynchings aren't there, but yet you still see some stuff that goes on that are very violent. They're just not as public as they used to be. And so the battle hasn't ended. And so if there's one thing I would like everybody here to get out to do is keep the fight. It needs to continue to struggle, and more importantly, it's happening more online today. Sorry.
Right. Thanks, Mitch. We'll have more time to engage. Next, Jonathan.
So sorry. Excuse me. My name is Jonathan Jelks. I don't have a long bio for you. I'm very happy to be on this esteemed panel with these panelists here. I'm just a student and a person who considers getting involved civically in the Grand Rapids community 100% and absolutely essential. I grew up in Southeast Grand Rapids, two-parent household, working class neighborhood, professor as a father, history professor that is, and a lawyer as a mother. And that was my primary influence for all of my thinking. I think I see my mother there in the back. You can imagine having those two academics in your household, how that affected my outlook. But just growing up in the neighborhood, and my neighborhood being predominantly African-American, and then walking down the block, and it turns to East Grand Rapids. Within one block, I grew up on Sherman Street in the Easttown Baxter area, and seeing the vast differences and the contrast between my neighborhood and the neighborhood that's less than 2 minutes away really had a profound impact on my outlook. Watching the movie, the Mighty Times of Rosa Parks, it moved me, of course. Every time I see stuff from the civil rights era, it definitely moves me. But it was so short and so sweet that it kind of didn't, I don't know, paint the total picture, I think, that young people, particularly millennials, need in order to understand the context of civil rights. It just seems like we've condensed civil rights somewhat to just Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, and of course those are the great pillars of civil rights, but there were so many people that came before you. You just don't get a bus boycott without knowing what A. Philip Randolph, the great labor union leader, did and how he kind of architected the Washington March before Martin Luther King, or how an Ida B. Wells sets the stage for a Rosa Parks and the bus boycott. So when people watch this, I mean, I love the movie, and I'm profoundly influenced and moved by what the ancestors have done. But I'm very concerned that sometimes we kind of McDonald'ize or kind of just put civil rights into this real quick snapshot, and it's like, here you go. Because I'm sure like a lot of the behavior from some of the people that my peers, all the 20-year-olds and teens in here saw from some of the people in the movie was ridiculous. They can't even imagine people not being able to use the same water fountain. But how does that translate into civil rights today, and what does that mean for us? And I think that's something that we need to explore. So that's my quick spiel.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. Beth?
I'm Bev Drake, native of Grand Rapids Public Schools, Grand Rapids Community College, Grand Valley State University. Though I did live away for years in Iowa and California. 14 I was when Rosa Parks sat on that bus. As you can imagine, the media did not put that out, but I was a member of the Youth Council of the NAACP. At that point, very active, and we were kept abreast of what was happening. And so from 55 to 64, I grew up angry. I probably did my first activism in high school when teachers would say, there's no colored kid in this room whose IQ meets a white kid. And I'd raise my hand. And I said, how do you know that? I said, have you seen my cumulative file? And I got in trouble. Back in those days, you could get in trouble for speaking up. Couldn't we, Eli? Couldn't we, Margot? Couldn't we, Ellen? But I was angry because I knew that there was injustice. And I knew that this Grand Rapids had a church on every corner. And what did that mean? What did it mean? The Lord said we're all his children. But we were not they didn't act like we were their children. And so that carried over into my work. I think I have been an activist forever. It is a passion. The work that I do allows me to continue to try to open doors for those that need that door opened. And it was opened for me back in 1971 when I got a job with the city of Grand Rapids. And they gave me a choice. They said, well, you can go into direct service or you can go into administration. And I said, give me administration so that I can show others how to get access. And I have had that honor for the last 40 years of working for social justice. And I'm like you. I think we economize civil rights. And we definitely need to go back, and we need, particularly our black people, need to teach our black young people what it means.
Thank you. Reverend Van Dorn?
Well, I'm a white farm kid from southeast Michigan, grew up on a dairy farm, isolated from much of what went on in the civil rights movement, just a little bit too young to have been old enough to, on my own, quite know what was going on. Almost no African American folks in the community I grew up in. A number of Mexican immigrants, as it turned out in the area, and was fortunate enough, at least as a young child, to have some of those involvements. But the best fortune was having parents that, even though we didn't have much involvement with people who looked much different from us, still had a real, very deep-seated and religiously based sense of justice. So, though I was, completely naive, that sense of justice, and that for me, that has a humanist and a biblical base, was pretty important. So knew that I was pretty isolated. So my undergraduate work was